It's getting close to late afternoon following our excursion to the topaz mine, but before we finish for the day, we take our guests to a place we visited the last time we were in Brazil for a bit of a history lesson.
Go ahead.
So we decided to take a break from rockhounding for the topaz and go into the Mariana gold mine. It opened in 1719 and operated for about 245 years after that. In order to get into it, we're taking a very interesting train card.
The cart rattles and shakes as it did when we first descended into the Mina Da Passagem 2 years prior, but this time it groans under the weight of 6 new visitors. The cable linking the cart to the surface guides us down at an equivalent speed of probably a brisk walking pace, so the ride to the bottom takes about a full 10 minutes of wobbly travel, passing by dry offshoots into darkness and unknown passages. Debris from digging and blasting still litters the side of the passage, but we can't see any of the results. Just the dim lights and shadows all the way down. Finally, haltingly, we reach the bottom of the railway at 120 meters downslope, the 315 level.
About 80 kilometers away, and the town of Mariana spanning another 50 kilometers the other direction. The mine spans the entire length of both.
After producing approximately 35 tons of gold in its operating lifetime, the mine's daily activities predominantly revolve around tourism now, as a primary location for cave divers and for explorers looking to expand upon the known 30 kilometers of cave system. We go back up the slope in another ponderous train ride and return to the golden daylight to get some food and rest, and prepare for an artistic demonstration the following day. We've come to the workshop of the family Venturini, currently managed by Daniel Venturini and his brother David. Located in Govenador Valadares, the Venturini specialize in handcrafting small and large-scale carvings, piecing together a panoply of raw material into skillful demonstrations of artisan mineralogy.
Okay, we're here in Valadares, Brazil right now at a cutting house where they're actually making all of the toucan parrots and seahorses. So we're gonna go see how these are made.
You know, I can see this, and I think will be a macaw. You know, it's like when you work here and you take the measure, you can see in this stone how it will be, you know, and this stone will be a macaw.
The process starts with cutting stone into the rough size of the figure it will eventually become, and then shaping that material into the main shape of the carving using diamond grit grinding wheels. Finer details, such as the plumage of this eagle's wing carved out of sodalite, are scored and etched into the rock using a thin-bladed handheld rotary saw. Larger 8 to 10 inch saws are also used to carve major details into the material.
Yeah, we pick the beak. We have a polished beak, and we pass some water for do the polish, you know. And we pick the stone and do this for polish. If I pass it here, we'll make shiny process, you know, for shiny. This is the body, and this is the head, you know? It's a round head.
During the cutting and polishing process, a pedestal base is chosen from large material that will complement the carving, upon which the finished specimen will be mounted. For this process, we're using a carved seahorse of quartz to demonstrate the metal peg installation to assemble the base and carving together into a final product.
The drill in the chest. Let's do it. You trust me? Yes. You trust me? I do. You swear? Go for it. Okay. I'm drilled with Okay.
Water is used throughout the entire cutting process to protect both stone and equipment from overheating or breaking, but here it's especially necessary. The drill press bit is hollow to allow water to pass through and cool the quartz at its point of contact. Certain types of stone, like the quartz here, are more susceptible to fragmenting if subjected to too much pressure or heat, so it's critical that the mineral mass is cored out gradually. One final pass on the drill press is done to create indentations where the eyes of the seahorse will be adhered, and then the carving is rinsed to wash off excess residue, dust, and detritus.
Garnet. Say once for show you. It's polished, garnet, and we'll put in the piece. You know, this is quartz. You know, we go with this, we fix pieces with this, and it's an important thing for us.
The powdered quartz acts as a base that mixes with a drop of adhesive to create a bond between quartz socket and garnet eye. And with that final accentuation, the assembled piece is complete.
What do you think?
Oh, we love it.
What do you think?
It is perfect.
You trust me?
You trust it?
A thin coat of varnish is applied to the stone as a protecting and wet look agent and allowed to dry.
Now the hole is not complete, you know, and we have to take the quartz and put inside the hole for glue better, you know, for this piece don't. Now we put the quartz and we have a glue and we'll put inside. It's done. The piece is done. And now we can take the wing and put, you know.
For more opaque materials, such as the sodalite wings and body of this eagle carving, the varnish addition instantly creates a fine polished appearance, accentuating the depth of the plumage lines etched into the sodalite mass.
Now we have to stop and wait. The varnish are ready, you know. And when it's ready, we can pass the hand, and we put this and this piece we fix on the base.
There's a wealth of mineralogical diversity throughout Brazil, but it requires an exceptional set of skills to take the natural art of the earth and shape it into the forms of the art of life. I think the Venturini workshop achieves that quite nicely.